Congratulations. We made it. We have real TCU football happening tonight. It's game day. I think the Frogs win tonight. I'll tell you why next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Stephen Simcox. We made it, friends. It's game day. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We're free and available wherever it is you get your podcast. And it's a really good day to subscribe on those various platforms because after tonight's ball game, there will be a post-game show. I'm not sure exactly what time yet because I'll be doing one of my other side hustles as well tonight. I'm covering some Texas high school football on Friday nights during the fall. So I'll be doing that, watching the TCU game, and then knocking out a post-game show. So if you're like, I'm probably going to go to sleep after the game, totally cool. You can check it out first thing in the morning before you digest another whole day of college football. But if you want to stay up late with me, grab that coffee. Let's do some Frogs After Dark. And listen, it's win or lose. We process it. It's pretty raw and real. And it's fun. It's fun for me to do it either way, but obviously a lot more fun when we're talking about a victory. And I think TCU does win tonight. I feel like they get a win and get to 1-0. And I wanted to start today by giving you the keys to the game. Here are the 3 keys for the game for the TCU Horned Frogs tonight. The first one's pretty simple, and it's kind of football 101, but taking care of the ball is going to be a big key. I expect that both teams are going to be amped up. Now, we've discussed this week, like the atmosphere at the farm, not always great. I wouldn't expect like a packed house and a raucous environment, which means you got to kind of bring your own energy and enthusiasm. But for TCU, if they're the team that I think they're supposed to be and have the intangibles that I've seen sort of from afar over the last few months, then hopefully they're fired up and ready to go. And I feel like when you're amped up like that, you can be prone to make silly mistakes. It could be a sloppy game early on with both teams just kind of getting a feel for things. So the worst thing you can do is make a momentum shifting play by turning the ball over. If Stanford goes and scores, then tip your cap and make them go the length of the field on a consistent basis. Do not allow them to have a short field. Josh Hoover needs to do a better job taking care of the football. Sonny Dykes said that multiple times this offseason. He did say during fall camp that he thinks Josh is ready to go, and he did a much better job this offseason of taking care of the ball, making good decisions, not being as much of a gunslinger. So we'll get to see that for the first time in practice against another defense. This Stanford defense, from a statistical standpoint, nailed that. I was kind of worried about the pronunciation. I clearly didn't go to Stanford. They were bad last year. Like, they were really bad. One of the worst teams in the country. Now, they've got a lot of returning players, but they ranked 129th in the country, allowing 461 yards per game. They allowed the most passing yards in the country. Now they have Tristan Sinclair and Gaithian Bernando coming back at linebacker. Also, Colin Wright is a good corner for them who will be returning. But they didn't add a lot of players in the transfer portal because that's not what they do. Because of the academic standards at Stanford, they can't just dip into the transfer portal and find replacements. So they're really banking on continuity being the key for them this year, just getting better from one season to the next. And that can happen from time to time. But if this TCU offense is good and efficient, they should put up points tonight. And it's going to be in the passing game. It's also going to be running the football with Cam Cook. So key number 1, just take care of the ball. Do not allow Stanford to have a short field. Don't allow a team that's an underdog in this ball game to get some momentum, to get some easy scores, and just hand them points on a golden platter. Secondly, running the ball, protecting Josh, the O-line. How are they going to do tonight? I don't expect it to be a well-oiled machine. I've said before, it's probably going to take a couple of weeks, maybe longer, for these guys to gel. But you brought in some talent. I mean, Bless Harris was a starting tackle at Florida State when he was healthy. James Brockermeyer was in the 2 deep at Alabama. He should be your center. Colton Deary played a good amount of snaps for you last year in the interior offensive line. He'll be at guard. Carson Bruno coming over from Louisiana Tech, who was a tackle there. He's going to slide over to that guard spot. And then at that other tackle position, Mike Nichols. I know a lot of folks had issues with Kendall Briles in play calling, especially, situational stuff, short yardage, red zone, getting too creative, running the ball on the outside too much. I had issues with those things too. And I think part of that is Kendall's got to make better decisions. But another thing that was painfully obvious as the season wore on was that they just struggled to get push, especially with that interior O-line. And when you can't block the guys in front of you and, reestablish the line of scrimmage and open up lanes for your running game, then it's tough to just hand the ball off on 3rd and 2 or 4th and 1. You kind of have to get creative. Now, that being said, I think another game management thing that TCU can do this year, especially now since they have a good kicker in Kyle Limmerman, I understand everybody wants to be aggressive now, and field goals, there's a 4-point difference between field goal and a touchdown. But getting points on the board, I think especially in a game like this where you're the favorite and you're just trying to stay ahead of the game on the road is a huge key. So it's early in the game, if it's 4th and 2, kicking a field goal is not the worst thing, right? You get 3 points, you put together a nice drive, you go back to the sidelines, you say, okay, how can we do a better job of moving the chains next time we get the football? But this offensive line, one, can they stay healthy? I mean, that's going to be a huge – does everybody just make it out of this ball game feeling good and ready to go next week against Long Island? And then secondly, are they going to be able to understand the calls and protections, communicate together properly? One thing we saw in the second half of the season last year, I think part of it was the O-line, part of it was Josh Hoover. He's not known for his mobility. Teams were heating up the TCU offense. They had a clear game plan of, if we get pressure on this guy, then things get disrupted. So the good news is Andy Avalos and that defense, they've done an outstanding job this year or through fall camp of hopefully preparing the offense by just running their base stuff, because they're going to run a lot more pressures and stunts and blitzes and try to confuse offenses. So TCU's got a look at that. They saw that in real live action, and I expect Stanford to try to do some of those things to confuse them. And so a huge key is going to be, okay, can we block that up? And can we open up lanes for Cam Cook? Because running efficiency is going to be a huge part of this too. Passing the ball is a lot easier when linebackers and safeties start creeping up in the box, because they're like, man, we have to put more numbers in the run game because we're just getting gashed on 1st and 2nd down. And it also helps your offense by putting you in more favorable 2nd and 3rd down situations, opens up the playbook more. You can do more things. You can take more risk. You can take a couple deep shots if you want on 2nd and 4, because on 3rd and 4, you still have opportunity to, put together a good play to get a first down. So offensive line wise, what do they look like tonight? Can they be effective? That's going to be a huge key. Third key, flipping over to the defense. I mean, a lot of moving parts and a lot of questions about this defense that we're going to see for the first time in game action tonight. But I think the biggest thing for me is, okay, Eleke Omeor, the big-time wide receiver from Stanford, he's a dude. He had an outstanding season last year. That's going to be a challenge. Whoever gets the nod, I imagine JT Broughton will be the guy that gets the majority of those reps against him. But how do you cover everybody else? Because that guy's probably going to get his. I mean, that's an NFL wide receiver. Ashton Daniels, their quarterback, has good chemistry with him because of the time that they spent together last year. But can you not allow Tiger Bachmeier, one of their other wide receivers who had over 400 yards last year, don't allow him to go off. Don't allow them to get the ball to their tight ends. Can you stop the run? That's going to be a huge key. And not just running the ball with their running back, but Ben Parker, who covers Stanford for the rival site, he came on the show yesterday, and he said he expects multiple QBs to play tonight. They could see as many as 3. They've got Ashton Daniels, who's a dual threat guy, played pretty much the majority of last season. Then Justin Lampson, a transfer from Syracuse, but he was at Stanford last year, threw for 504 yards, rushed for 334, but he's more of a wildcat QB. He's going to get back there and run the football and come downhill in the power running game. So that's going to be something TCU has to watch. And then Elijah Brown, talented 4-star freshman, who obviously you're not going to have a lot of tape on, but he might come in and run a few series. So Troy Taylor, I mean, not super high expectations this year, kind of playing with house money, possibly going to toy with some different things. I think the majority of the snaps will be taken by Ashton Daniels, and then Justin Lampson will get some opportunities in the run game. And who knows, maybe they put Elijah Brown out there from time to time. But I feel like Lampson and Daniels will be the two players that get the majority of the snaps. But stopping the run game and covering everybody else, aside from Mayo Maynard, to make sure that if somebody hurts you, it's him, and it's not, your second wide receiver, your tight end. That'll be a huge key for this football game. So tonight, 9:30 Central Time, TCU kicks off the season. That was your key to the game. Who are the three most important players, or the three players to watch in this contest? We're going to get to that next. We'll also finish the show with my prediction. I'll get to some of your predictions. Feel free to comment here on YouTube. Tweet at me at SimcockSteven, and make sure to stay tuned for the post-game show that's going to come this evening after the game. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team. We do it here every day. Man, I'll tell you one thing about having a lot of kids at the house. One of the most challenging things in the day is getting dinner on the table. Like getting home from school, okay, you're running around. We got to get homework done. Kids got to do their chores. And then they get so much energy because they've just been sitting at school all day. So they're running around being crazy. And my wife usually is trying to cook, and she gets stressed out, understandably so. So you get the food on the table for the kids, and then get everybody in bed, and it's like, okay, what are we going to eat? How about you have some easy, nutritious, already prepped meals? Go to factormeals.com. Got a deal going on right now. If you use the code LOCKEDONCollege50 to get 50% off your first order. But these Factor meals, what they are, they're just good, nutritious meals that will fuel you up. 35 different meals, 60 add-ons. You can crush your wellness goals with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. From breakfast to dessert, stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. Keep kitchen time to a minimum. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, no prepping, no cooking. Best thing, no cleaning up. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 different menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximum protein intake, and simply eat well balanced. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use that code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off the next month. Again, that code is LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box and then 20% off the next month. A fantastic deal. Appreciate Factor's Meals being a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. Another sponsor that we love is eBay Motors. If you need a part for your car, you cannot mess around with that. Go to ebaymotors.com today. They have the Guaranteed Fit program that will help you keep your ride alive. You simply put in the make and model of your vehicle. You go to the shopping cart, or you pick the part you need, you put in the shopping cart, and it will tell you immediately, yes, this is what you need for your car, or no, it's not. Whether you're trying to level up your car to peak performance, or you're just simply trying to keep safe on the road, eBay Motors has what you need for your ride. Keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Again, that's ebaymotors.com. Use their Guaranteed Fit program. Do that today. Okay, so players to watch in this game. So we're going to stay on the defense. We're talking about the secondary and the challenge of covering those guys around A.O. Maynard, because he's probably going to get some catches tonight and do his thing. Can you limit opportunities for others? I think another player to watch, and I'll kind of cheat here and go with players in one spot, but that stud linebacker position, I'm just ready to see what it looks like. You know, that's been a very active and successful spot for different players in Andy Avalos' defense, most notably Caden Thibodeau, who now is with the New York Giants when he was at Oregon. But Cooper McDonald comes in from San Diego State. They had really good things to say about him and what he's brought to the table since he's been on campus. Also, Devin Deal from Tulsa. Both those guys have the ability to be in that stand-up outside linebacker position, but also drop back in coverage. But mainly it's going to be getting after the quarterback. And at times you could see Jonathan Bax and Marcel Brooks get some opportunities there as well. But bringing players from different angles is awesome. Bringing blitzes is awesome. At the same time, though, you have to get pressure with your base players. If you don't, then you're going to be putting a lot of pressure on your secondary because you're constantly bringing extra defenders in the pass rush game trying to get to the quarterback. So at that edge rusher position, that'll be a huge key. Can those guys, get around those tackles, get those that shoulder bent and get to the quarterback as quickly as possible? That'll be a big part of this football game. And I just want to see what that looks like because, when Andy Avalos and then he brought Ken Wilson with him, the linebackers coach, when they got here, that was a spot on this defense there weren't a lot of guys within the roster that really fit that bill. Marcel Brooks has sort of fits there. Jonathan Bax was a guy that hit the transfer portal and then came back just because he is such a good player for that spot. But ultimately, you have to find somebody who's going to be effective at times. And I know Jamie Plunkett told us last week, he was like, look, there have also been moments where they've had two stud linebackers on the field with DLA and McDonald on either side. And so I'm ready to see what those formations look like as well as they try to, really pressure the QB. And there's no better way to slow down a passing game than forcing a quarterback to throw the ball early, just getting in his face, getting in his line of sight. All that stuff matters when we're talking about, the rhythm, the timing of the passing game. That can be super disruptive. Secondly, Cam Cook, man, I'm excited to see what he brings to the table at the running back position. The coaches and players have raved about them. And we've come to the end of talking season. We are at a place now where we're going to see what these guys actually look like on the field. Cam looks the part. It seems like and sounds like he's had an outstanding offseason. He's ready to step in this role and be your lead back. And yes, a big part of that's going to be O-line wise. Can they block? Can they open up running lanes for him? Amani Bailey had a really good year from like a stats perspective, just total yardage, but situational running was a struggle. That I'm not saying that was all his fault, but just in general, that unit, they had trouble opening up lanes for him to run in. Trey Sanders also supposedly has cut down on some weight, looks more explosive than he did in the past. And I think for Cam as well, like he's going to be fine running the football. He's done that forever. I also just wonder some of those ancillary things that come with the position, catching the ball in the backfield, being able to step up in a big moment and pick up a blitzer that's coming through the A-gap to keep Josh Hoover clean and allow him to deliver a strike down the field. Those are going to be things that, Bailey really grew in, Kendre Miller and Amari DiMercato did a great job of, and that's the subtle stuff that you want from your running back that can take some time. But as far as just getting downhill and running the ball, I think Cam is very well equipped to do that and should be more than ready to step in and get this done. And then finally, it always comes down to QB play, but Josh Hoover, I think the intangible stuff is off the charts, and he's shown from the moment he stepped into this role that it feels like leadership, just getting the team to kind of rally around you, all that stuff he scores really high on. And I think he did some things last year in the passing game that were impressive, but his two wins in the back half of the season were against teams that weren't very good, BYU and Baylor. And so can he consistently make good decisions, not turn the ball over? And is there any rust from missing all of spring camp? That'll be a huge key as well. But this offense, you want it to take a leap in year two. You saw in year one, okay, could rack up yardage, could get into plus territory and also get into the red zone, but then struggled to score touchdowns. How are they improving that? Is it just about run efficiency in the run game? Is it about finding those weapons on the outside? And in theory, like a lot of weapons for Josh to work with. Savion Williams, Dalen Wright, Eric McAllister, J.P. Richardson, Jack Besh is an interesting player. Major Everhart and Jordan Bailey are interesting guys as well. But there's only one ball. And, once the game starts, you got to find those go-to players that you trust in big moments and that you can get the ball to move the chains, to score touchdowns. And so we'll get a vision of what that's going to be in this first game when they take the field against Stanford tonight. When we come back, Final thoughts, predictions. I'll read off some of your predictions. Feel free in the YouTube comments here to predict the score of the game. Tweet at me at SimcockSteven. Let me know your keys to the game. Let me know if you're in Palo Alto tonight. Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. If you need to pick me up for that 9:30 kickoff tonight in the Central Time Zone, 5-Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com. Might not have time for that tonight. Just go to the gas station, pick up a 5-Hour Energy. But did you know you can order it online now? It's not just, at the local convenience store. Zero sugar, convenient, portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. They have flavors galore: watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. There's a flavor from everyone. Try them all. On the site, you have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors, and it's delivered right to your door. If you're someone like me and you're kind of paranoid about like energy drinks and what's in them, 5-Hour Energy is about as tame and natural as you can get. And you can order that online or just go to the store and grab it. It's been around forever. 5-Hour Energy. We appreciate them being a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. All right, so here we go. It's game day. What's going to happen tonight? So I think the Frogs win. I went on the Locked On College Football show. I'm not sure when that's airing. I assume today. Spencer McLaughlin was kind enough to have me on. And we talked in segment 3. He thinks Stanford's going to cover. That line is 9.5. I think the Frogs cover. My score prediction was 35-24. And you might think to yourself, that seems a little conservative. Shouldn't TCU win by more than that? I mean, my thought process is this. I think there's going to be some growing pains for the defense. I also just feel like week one's always kind of wacky. So the way I see this playing out, kind of a slow, sleepy first half. Things gradually pick up. Close game at halftime, and then TCU wins by a couple scores. It's never really in doubt per se, but it's close enough that you can't just completely relax and check out of what's going on the field. And I mean, I think like you take any sort of win on the road this week and you build on what you can and you get ready for what's basically a controlled scrimmage against Long Island, and then you get UCF in that next week. So this game is honestly just survive, advance, find out what you do well, find out the things you got to work on, and then move on and get ready for what's going to be a huge game in a couple weeks and a game you can't overlook next week. Tim says his prediction for the game is TCU 42, Stanford 17. Jacob Langford says TCU will win. Good teams win, but great teams cover. So we'll see what we have by early Saturday morning. Vince Pryor says he just wants to let them play. Right now, nobody knows how good anybody is. And you're right, we don't know. But the great news is we get a real football game tonight. And we're going to get, it's not going to be the end-all be-all, but we'll at least get a start of, okay, what does TCU do well? Where do they struggle? What changes has Sonny Dykes made, not only with personnel, but with game management and mentality? How is he approaching the season differently after the disappointment last year? Are there any ideas that he's grabbed from, all the former head coaches that are on the staff in these consultant roles tonight? I think TCU wins tonight. I feel like we have a good post-game show afterwards where we're talking about the Frogs getting a victory over one of those classic ACC opponents in Stanford. But thank you for joining the show. Thanks for rocking with me all week long, and we're not done. As I said, don't know exactly what time yet because I'll be coming back from some Friday Night Football coverage and trying to, digest the full TCU game as well. But late tonight or early Saturday morning, we'll have a post-game show breaking down whatever happens. I think the Frogs win, though. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team. We do it here every day. We're free and available wherever it is you get your podcast.